Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us in this APPI Focus on ARV and Learn by Doing webinar workshop. It's truly a workshop, but I'm now starting with a topic which I will always relate to ARV, and the topic is consciousness, information, and love. Now, consciousness is being studied in lots of places. There are places in universities. There are lots of meetings. And one of the wonderful things to see, which hasn't always been true, but this has changed in the last really decade or so, is they're connecting consciousness and spirit with physics of space and time. So they're trying to just understand this a lot better. They are at the level of the physical world 99% of the time. Like here are microtubules, looks like a computer. So they're saying consciousness somehow comes from here, and it's certainly related to our nervous system. Here are synapses and things like that. But I love this picture because microtubules, and we have trillions of them, are also in paramecium, and they in fact learn, and microtubules are in these celias here. But Stuart Hameroff, who is really one of the leaders in the modeling of consciousness using microtubules, this is a very good quote from him. The nature of consciousness remains deeply mysterious and profoundly important, with existential, medical, and spiritual implications. We know what it is like to be conscious, to have awareness, a conscious mind, but who or what are we who know such things? How is the subjective nature of phenomenal experience, our inner life? And that's so important. We have this whole inner life of consciousness to be explained in scientific terms. What consciousness actually is and how it comes about remain unknown. So there's a lot of work going on kind of at the physical level, but the deepest roots of what consciousness is a mystery and may always remain an intellectual mystery. I've got a model which it's intended to be a practical model, and it comes from taking quite seriously the fact that consciousness is fundamental. Erwin Schrödinger, these are the guys who were in quantum mechanics and were trying to figure out all the strange things that were going on there, like faster than light entanglement between particles and things of that sort. And he said consciousness cannot be accounted for in physical terms, for consciousness is absolutely fundamental. It cannot be accounted for in terms of anything else. Max Planck, who was also a very famous quantum mechanical scientist, I regard consciousness as fundamental, pretty straightforward. I regard matter as derivative from consciousness. We cannot get behind consciousness. Planck also said that intellectually we may never solve it because we are part of it. Now, here's the basis of the model. And it just allows us to sort of talk about things and begin to be at the same place and how fundamental consciousness is. So if we take this circle and we say it represents a universe of collective consciousness containing everything consciousness touches. Okay, so that's the circle. Past, present, future, outside of space-times, other dimensions, wherever consciousness might reside. But past, present, and future is particularly important for us doing ARV. One of the important characteristics of this circle is that the UCC, right, the universe of collective consciousness, cannot have a boundary. This is a circle without a boundary. Because if you think of something, that's outside, well, it's touched your consciousness. So it's a rather special construct that contains everything, and yet it has no boundary. A little bit like our physical universe, actually. And notice the physical universe is indeed inside here. It comes from the UCC, because our physical universe, we touch it all the time, both physically, we think about it. So the physical universe is inside here, but the UCC is bigger than that because it contains non-physical things. It contains ideas which have touched us. Now you're in here too, you personally, and all other sentient beings. You're in here because of your physical sense, all those experiences, also your thoughts and ideas, and your emotions. We're going to be talking a lot about emotions, which do not get talked about enough in the context, I think, of associative remote viewing. Now, this is something inside here. This could be the universe. This could be you. It could be an idea. But notice things, and I use that in the most general sense, but they cannot ever be completely separated from the UCC. Anything in the physical universe must have a fuzzy boundary. Now, we've said there are no boundaries at all in the UCC. You try to take something out, if it had a clean boundary, you violated the term of what the UCC is. You found something that has a boundary. Okay? What this fuzzy boundary does is it is the raw definition of what I call entanglement energy. In the physical world, this entanglement energy is introduced to maintain the illusion of separateness. You think the screen you're looking at now is really a separate entity, but it's got a fuzzy boundary. It's connected to the UCC through, I believe, zero-point energy, all kind of complicated things to make this happen, but it goes down to being consciousness is fundamental. And you have this experience of the screen, which is the most important part to you. And that's really all you know about the screen, is all of your experiences of it. So it's this illusion of separateness is where this entanglement energy comes, and it is also there to maintain the communication channel with the UCC. This thing never loses touch with the UCC. It's got a communication channel. That all happens through the fuzzy boundary. Now, you're in here. We've already indicated that. But also there's something, and I like this symbol, and I will continue to use it. It's like an I-Psi symbol. This is your Psi self, past, present, and future. And I distinguish the Psi self from kind of all of you. So this is the part of your subconscious, the part of you that's interested in Psi, and in particular interested in doing it. Now, let me give one example before I give a second one that's going to lead to the rest of the talk. You and remote viewing, okay? The UCC includes everything, past, present, and future. Now let's imagine this event is you doing your remote viewing involving a target, let's say right now. So let's say this is the present. The second one is you doing your feedback session over here. more in the future. Both of these are in the UCC, and indeed they are entangled. Your consciousness creates a type of handshake with these two events, and you can enhance this entanglement energy. In physics, they talk a lot about entanglement energy, and there are ways on enhancing it, but we're going to talk about other ways to do that. Now let's just talk about emotions. For the first time, we're bringing emotions in here. What is an emotion? A complex experience of consciousness. Okay, we're now talking emotions in the now. It's the now where everything happens. So it's a complex experience of now consciousness, now bodily sensation, and behavior that reflects the personal significance of a thing, an event, or a state of affairs. Okay, so we know we have these emotions. We all experience them to one degree or another. Some intellectual people say they barely experience them, but they do. And a lot of people are more emotional than others. Okay, so imagine you've had some emotional event in the past. Now here's a similar event in the future. The second event is you experiencing this similar event, and they're obviously entangled. This is a model which just simply confirms many things you already know. But the fact that it's connecting the past and the future, and we can talk about these entanglements, is what is going to lead us, I hope, eventually to improve psychic phenomena in general, psi in general. We all know if you've had a negative emotional experience, there are triggers that could set them off. Also, if you've had a wonderful positive experience, you tend never to forget it. There might be triggers that'll bring it back. And so this, again, is the kind of handshake, and we can enhance it or diminish it, the entanglement energy. Okay, consciousness, we now have, and just remember what's important is all levels of consciousness, but they're always experienced in the now. And they're shared with the UCC. The UCC never forgets because it's got past, present, and future, but you are a marvelous creature that experiences consciousness in the now, makes choices in the now. Okay, first let's talk about data versus information. Data is raw, unorganized facts that need to be processed. When they're processed, organized, structured, or presented in a given context so as to make it useful, it's called information. Pretty straightforward. Information technology is very, very, very big, as I think you all know. Computer networks, the cloud stores information. We have access to so much information. Sometimes it's more than we know what to do with, but nevertheless, the information is out there. Now, let me just give a brief example to distinguish between the kind of simple data examples like height and weight versus height. The raw data is you go out and you ask 1,000 people, or you measure how high are you, what's your height and what's your weight. That's the raw data. And yet here you can put it together, and there's some very useful information here because you can see most people look like they're about 6, or the highest for women are shorter than men, and you can see the frequency. And anyway, but these are straight from the numbers. What's done less and less, a lot less than this at least, is emotional information. getting emotional data is just not as precise and measurable as height and weight. So it's more difficult to quantify, but science is working on it. And I want to give you the sense of how they're working on it. This is an interesting example, which I found from Twitter sentiment visualization. I'm not going to analyze it in detail, but the fact that they could do this from the words. Now, this is related to things like artificial intelligence. Based on what people are writing, other people will evaluate what they write and come up with things like relaxed, serene, pleasant, on the positive side, but unhappy, depressed, nervous, stressed. Okay, that kind of information now is out there. Every time you get out there in your emails and your Twitter, it would be possible to analyze things like that. They're looking at child facial expressions and are able to come up with happy, fear, disgust, anger, surprise, neutral under some different situation, but it doesn't matter. That's not the point I'm making here. Is they are looking at this, they're looking at different people. In this case, they were children, and they can identify different kinds of facial expressions. This is the sort of thing that they must be doing at airports, trying to detect people who might be nervous, who might be potential terrorists and stuff like this. This technology is actually moving ahead quite quickly. But now I want to make an important point that's, again, closer to ARV and what we're talking about and what we're more interested in. And this is an example of an IZOF, individual zones of optimal functioning. Okay, wouldn't you like to be able to know when you're in the zone for ARV? Well, they've done some studies on this in sports, and to the relationship with emotional experiences and relative success in sporting tasks. And the very important conclusion is this is on the basis of individual rather than group-based patterns. You need to get down to the individual level. Here's an example where they were looking at anxiety. And there were 3 athletes. And one of them did his best performance when his anxiety level was high. Another kind of medium, and another really wanted to have minimal anxiety. And that is sort of interesting. But, I've heard that a lot of performers, before they go out, are very, very nervous, and then they give their best performance. Others sort of just take it for granted for whatever reason. They try to get very, very quiet. They meditate before and get quiet and do their performances. Very individualized. So, very individualized, very personal. Your best approach involving anxiety. Some may consider anxiety to be negative. Others may consider it to not be so negative. And that includes all of your emotions. And we're going to be talking about love, of course. But for you, being in the ARV zone is for you to find and or develop the techniques. This now becomes a very personal endeavor. Negative emotional triggers. There's been a lot more work done on negative triggers. I couldn't find actually any work on positive triggers, but that's what we are going to talk about. But it's interesting to just get the idea of triggers. Body impact, loss of gravity, public speaking was one of the highest in terms of triggers. And the idea here is that this is something that automatically brings forth an emotion without consideration. It's a trigger. Awareness of the trigger usually takes place at the end of this process, if at all. So this idea of negative stuff coming up, that acts as a trigger. Now here's a list, but I really want to connect this right away to ARV. Let's say you've had a miss. I call it a regular miss as opposed to displacement. We'll talk about displacement a little, shortly. But this was a miss, and the triggers for it, and the triggers that you might feel when you find out about the miss at feedback time, and when you remember your remote viewing session, maybe you had a lack of passion. You just sort of did this without really getting into it. You felt like you had to do it because you do one every Tuesday. Or maybe the fact that it was a miss, in some sense, you felt disrespected. How in the hell could I get a miss? Somebody out there doesn't really love me, a lack of affection, and I felt uncared for. These might be the kind of feelings that go along. And again, remember, in ARV, it's the RV session, the feedback session, and if you're a self-judge, the judging session, that are all within you. And so these kind of triggers could happen at any time. We don't live in linear time. That's what precognition is all about. Now, what about a displacement miss? I feel like that was really unfair. Why in the hell did that happen to me? I'm frustrated. I feel quite disconnected. I clearly am not doing something right, or somebody out there is trying to get me, or who knows exactly what your feelings were. Okay, but on the list, there might be things like that, and that might be what might fit. And displacement or regular miss, somehow I must be to blame. You start blaming yourself. I felt judged, but judged by the outside or judged inside. Notice, and this is so important, that in either case, it's inside, because you are feeling judged. You are feeling blamed. I just can't overemphasize this idea that what you have to get is it's all inner work. It's you. It's your consciousness in the moment. And what about really at this level, you might feel totally unloved, totally forgotten in terms of anything good happening to you. There are a lot of things which could be going on. But in all of these, notice the way they put them here, because it's I felt. It's like in the past. The skill, which I believe we all need to learn and learn better, is to have these feelings in real time. I feel judged now. I am lousy at this. That's a kind of judgment, right? If you were to have that feeling, what I want to talk about is what you can do to reduce that, because I believe in reducing those feelings. They'll happen less and less often in the future, and that'll improve your ARV. So take action when you feel this in real time. Now, what kind of action? Well, how about love action? That's what we're going to be talking about here. Buddha says the way is not in the sky. And I think by way he means living the physical world. The way is in the heart. Love has reasons which reason cannot understand. It's like another one of those cases where intellectually you're not going to explain it. Love is probably the most shared thing in the UCC. You know, the UCC is one entity, the way we're talking about it. That's the best we can do. And if you had to come up with one emotion that would be most fundamental to the UCC, love works pretty well. And I believe that's a really good way to think about it. And that's how we're thinking about it here. And I'm clearly not the only one because of a million quotes about love. And I'm going to show you a lot of them. The end of all wisdom is love, love, love. Only love gives us the taste of eternity. And notice the eternal now concept. You know, we all live in this now, and then the next now, and the next now. All of those are there because there is an eternal now, like the UCC. The bridge between science and spirituality begins with the heart. The heart is the regulator of our energetic state, working synergistically with the nervous system and the brain to bring coherence and positive emotion to life. Should have quotation marks on that. So the heart is the regulator of our energetic state, working with the nervous system and the brain to bring coherence and positive emotion to life. It produces the strongest electromagnetic field in the body. The heart produces the strongest electromagnetic field in the body, one that extends all around us, allowing for energetic communication of this coherence with all of life. Thus, the heart breaks down internal and external environments and allows us access to the oneness of life. I do a lot of quotes because people say things, and when they resonate with me, they say them so much better than me. So this came from this link, which I'm happy to send you. Here's another quote. Compared to the electromagnetic field produced by the brain, the electrical component of the heart's field is about 60 times greater in amplitude and permeates every cell in the body. The magnetic component is approximately 5,000 times stronger than the brain's magnetic field and can be detected several feet away from the body with sensitive magnetometers. Okay, so you get this feeling that the heart, even in the measurable physical sense, is stronger, has more energy than the brain would. And again, another one. The heart contains 40,000 neurons, an electromagnetic field 60 times larger in amplitude. There's your 5,000 again. This is the quote. The heart is a state of intelligent consciousness. Okay, we'll have to see if we can come to understand that a little better, and I will at least talk about that. But the heart is a state of intelligent consciousness. So what the mind sees, the heart feels. Now, a lot of people have talked about different states of consciousness. And, negative, what here is called contracted, has things like fear, grief, guilt. You get to neutrality. And it's interesting, courage and pride they actually have lower than, but this is, I'm not going to quarrel or try to defend it, but it makes sense that there would be some sort of scale. My feeling is that, again, it would be very individualized. But notice love, 500, enlightenment, 700 plus. Now, I like love being here, frankly. And notice reason is lower than that. That reason is a very high level of consciousness. We'll agree with that. But love is even higher. And love being lower than enlightenment, for me, means it's just the right place to have one foot in the non-physical and one foot in the physical. It's the place to try to balance the spiritual and the physical. That's where love falls. And joy, of course, is right near there, whether you put it above or below. Now, let me just get a little bit more specific about that. Unconditional love. So that's what they're really talking about at 500. A permanent understanding of one's connectedness with all that exists, a deep sense of compassion. At the level of reason, one is living in service to the mind. Notice reason was one level below love, and now you're living in service to your mind. At the level of love, one places their mind and all other talents and abilities in service to one's heart. This is the level of awakening to one's true purpose. All motives at this level are pure and uncorrupted by the desires of ego. This is the level of lifetime service to humanity and beginning to feel as if being guided by a force greater than oneself. The example they give is Gandhi. Well, I don't think any of us are at that stage. And even maintaining that for a long period of time, it's not realistic. However, what about kind of using all of this to develop and apply a loving Mrs. Displacement strategy when you're feeling fear, anger, upset, or other negative emotions? As soon as you sense a negative emotion or thought, add love, feel love. That is the strategy which I'm putting forth here and going to discuss, going to be discussing further. And the idea is just that, in the now. And that's what's so important. As soon as you sense, and I'll just refer to it as a negative emotion or thought, and that's, you have that feeling. I love the example of anxiety. You may feel anxious and that may not be negative to you, okay? But you know if it's negative, you know if it's upset you, you know if you don't like it, you understand a negative emotion to you in the moment. What would happen if you added love and feel love even with it? It might still be there, but you're adding love to it and you're accepting it. And you're saying, you know what? You're part of my reality. You know how I know you're part of my reality? Because I just felt you. I'm feeling you now. And so I'm going to love you. So can this strategy heal those negative emotions and thought? Now let's talk about what healing is. To make healthy, whole or sound, restore to health, free from ailment. And I would say this is physical and mental. To bring to an end or conclusion as conflicts between people and groups, usually with the strong implication of restoring former amity, settle, reconcile. Okay. To free from evil, cleanse, purify, to heal the soul. Okay, so for healthier ARV, we're going to be talking now about using this love strategy. And love is the most healing force in the world. Nothing goes deeper than love. It heals not only the body, not only the mind, but also the soul. This word soul, spirit, there are so many other words that get used for the deepest sort of part of you, even the deepest part, perhaps, of your subconscious, the thing in you which is close to the UCC, those sorts of things. But we all have a sense of that. Now, will negative ARV emotions and thoughts that come into your consciousness in the near future, will that continue to happen? Yeah, probably yes. Will those negative ARV emotions and thoughts have less energy using this strategy? And I think the answer is yes. By giving it love, it's just going to become better integrated and won't need to come out in such a negative way anymore. Spread love everywhere you go. Let no one ever come to you without leaving happier. That's Mother Teresa. But the point I want to make here is, notice they're talking about people to people. Your subconscious mind has a mind of its own. Treat it as a friend, as a person who you would always want to leave happier after any conscious interaction. That's what you're doing. You're following this advice really exactly when a negative emotion or thought comes up and you give it love. You are leaving it happier. Love cures people, both the ones who give it and the ones who receive it. Again, this is going to help your mind, who is feeling this negative entity feeling that has come into it from you, but also now you're bringing love up from the subconscious. You're choosing to do that. It's going to help both. Love grants in a moment what toil can hardly achieve in an age. I just like that. Okay. So love your sub every chance you get, and love your conscious mind every chance you get. These two work together. Now, let me see if I can make this real in another way. Displacement, misses, etc. Here's the strategy. Into your mind, and this might even happen while you're thinking about ARV and not in a session or any part into a session. Damn, another displacement. What is wrong? Maybe during a feedback session. What is wrong in general? A lot of people blame, God, what an awful target that was, or what's wrong with me. And this is something, it looks like a devil, but it's something from within you. It's just a symbol for what is giving a negative thought like this. Now remember, love conquers all. Use this ARV strategy. What does that mean? This is really important. Notice in the moment, you are aware of this thought and feeling. It's in your mind. So your mind is there, knowing it. Okay. And this is your I-Psi mind. We're trying to improve ourselves here. But the heart is there too. You know this in the moment. You bring your ARV love strategy in by bringing love into this right now. Here's another one of those thoughts. I'll never be any good at ARV. Well, bring that love strategy and bring love into this. Share it with that feeling And the mind is there too. You're going to feel love as strongly as you can. Um, I just happen to have a nice picture of myself looking at my son when he was first born, my first grandchild. And whenever I look at it, I just feel more love. And I do that when these negative things come up. And yet my mind is there saying things like, oh, come on. I'm working on this. I am going to be better in the future. You can bring a little mental in there too, but it's in there automatically because I have felt this. All of this has to happen in the moment. This is not intellectual. You need to feel that love in the moment. Here's another one. You don't want to pass, go for it. Are you a wimp? How many of us have pushed that when we sort of knew it wasn't right? Well, when that comes up, feel the love about it, even if you did go ahead. Next time, by feeling the love, by doing the balance in the moment, maybe you won't pass. Or maybe you don't think that's a bad thing, in which case this isn't an issue for you. Miss. All I'm getting is misses. I hate misses. You get feelings like that, and you now become aware that's really, really negative. How can that be of any real value to me? I don't want to experience that. When I look back at my life, I don't want to experience this kind of upset, this kind of anxiety. All I'm getting is misses. I'm not really very happy. Well, guess what? Add love. Love conquers all. Use the ARV love strategy. Add it here. Love your misses. I don't know, after my thinking about this, at first it might sound counterintuitive, but when you really let it sink in, it really isn't. The misses are part of you. You did it. You need to take full responsibility for your life. Love it. Learn from it. And now look. Ooh, look what's happening. The strength of those are getting weaker and weaker, and they don't ever disappear completely because the UCC never forgets, but your entanglement with them can go way down. So love indeed heals. Love does not heal ARV past and present misses. However, what you want it to heal is it can heal the now moment negative feelings and thoughts. And in a precog world, healing these whenever they come up in the now moment, these feelings and thoughts, healing them using the ARV love strategy, will and may, again, everybody is different. I don't think there's anything that'll work for everybody, but I think they will improve future hit rates in people that do this for a while. And we'll see. We'll see. I hope a lot of you will pick this up and start doing it. I have just started doing it myself. So far, I got 2 hits, which means nothing. But I intend to continue doing it. Notice, even if it doesn't work, I am spending more time in a state of love. Why not? When I look back at my life, I'd love to have as much of it as possible to be in a state of love. And right now, of course, I'm doing this with the psi stuff, but I think everything I've said here relates to other aspects of our lives. Okay, questions on that? Oh, I have to disagree with your feeling. Thank you for putting stuff in the chat box. I have to disagree with your feeling that it's not possible to sustain an unconditional state of love. If Gandhis and others can reach that level, anyone and everyone can, in my opinion. I agree with you. It's just that not many of us are there yet. Can we? Yes. The strategy here is starting from a place, I think, being realistic and working to get to that state for, finite periods of time when it can help ARV. So it's sort of a specialized approach. Working towards the level of Gandhi, hell, sure. Thank you. Any other questions, comments?
I'm sorry to interrupt with the mic. I can't seem to pull up where I type in a comment.
That's okay. Go ahead. Ask a question
Okay.
or comment.
Kind of unrelated. I'm sorry to interrupt. This is my first time. I have to leave shortly after 4, but I'll be back. How long does it go on for?
We'll end this in about another hour and a half, maybe.
Okay, cool.
Something like that, yeah.
Okay, thank you. So I'll be gone for a little while, but I'll be back. All right, thanks.
Okay, good. Right, bye. Anything else? Okay. Let's now go. Let me turn her mic on. Let's now go to the second portion of this, which is ARV for newbies and veterans. Some people object to be called OBs. So this is what ARV is. And here's linear time. And it starts with a remote viewing session. This session is just like any other remote viewing session that anybody does in terms of its structure and objective. We use a cue, which is describe and or sketch your, and we use 6-digit random coordinate, your feedback target. That coordinate, or more and more, I'm liking it to be called the target reference number, because that is what it is. This target reference number is referring to the feedback target, period. And this is when you do your remote viewing and you create your transcript for the one and only target. And you are going to experience that during your feedback session. So that happens all the time in remote viewing sessions. Hey, even if you're looking for a missing person, hopefully you find them. There's the target. Where did you find them? God, I hate the cases when they're dead, but sometimes they'll find a grave. The grave was the feedback target. Anyway, we understand the idea of targets in general. We use what are called photo sites. I'll tell you about that shortly. But the point is, this target reference number refers to the one feedback target. Now, here's the feedback session. This is when you get your feedback. And I showed you before, both of these are in the UCC. They're entangled together. But this is when you get to see it. This is when you get to add energy to the entanglement. You put a lot of that energy in here because you're receiving information. Here is where you know the truth, and you describe and sketch it again. But you have the actual transcript in front of you. Okay, so how is this useful in ARV? In ARV, Dennis, I'm going to turn you off. How is this useful? Well, the whole purpose of ARV is before you get the feedback, you do analysis of the transcript, and based on that analysis, you make an investment choice. It might be a betting thing, or it might be a real investment. Let's just stay with investments, because that's at least my focus now. Investing in financials. And what would you like to know? We are doing binary ARV. So what we would like to do with this ARV is predict either the up or down movement. Now we use stops and limits. We'll get in at the opening and use a stop and limit and get out at the end of the day, even if our stop and limits are not met. But each day, there will be a well-defined up or a well-defined down, and we want to predict that before the outcome. That's the purpose of ARV. So, two choices, two possible targets. Keyword there being possible. One of the possible targets is associated with up. Guess what the other possible target is associated with? It's associated with down. The actual target shown during the feedback session will always capitalize. Yes, I'm shouting at you. Will always be associated with the actual up or down outcome. Knowing that, imagine if a viewer did a really good description of the down target, which is the down possible target, and a poor one of the up possible target. Well, then you would have every good reason to say, hey, I think the market is going to go down and I can invest. If I think the market's going down, I'll sell. And we're using things called derivatives, which can go up or down, either way, doesn't matter. But based on that example, if I believe it's going to go down because that was the possible target that had a good match, how did that have a good match? Well, it had a good match because the viewer saw it here and did their job. They described and sketched the down target here. That's ARV. With it, we do investments, we do wagers. I believe you really need to do this for the long term. One time just doesn't really mean very much. It's not 100%. What you want to develop is an edge over chance. So I really advocate get rich slowly so you can improve and deepen your contact with your subconscious. That's the real value, not getting rich. The rich is secondary. This is going to happen as you deepen your contact with your subconscious, because the subconscious knows the targets through the UCC. Now, so here are the three phases: remote viewing, judging, feedback. The idea that precognition begins with the feedback session, you know, it makes a lot of sense. And there are conferences, and a lot of people are now more and more using the word retrocausality, because here you are actually, you can think of it this way, passing information from the future to the past. So your remote viewing session gets the feedback information. Okay, so, and this is purposeful. Now, what are we using in app and APPI as our target? It's a photo site. So let me define photo site for you. Photo site refers to the specific photograph site location at the specific time the photo was taken. Specific time the photo was taken. I mean, consciousness is expected to gather information from the photo. I mean, you know, photos have a lot of information. Underneath here is a photo. There's a lot of information here. And move to the site at the time the photo was taken, because you can get more information by being there. You can get sounds. No sounds here. You get smells. And so your task, as always, is to describe and or sketch what can be obviously verified from the photo. Now that obviously is to make the judging stage easy. We want you to describe what will be obvious to the judge. So he'll be able to say, oh yeah, this is photo site A, photo site B. First impression gestalts are very important. When you first look at something, here you might get 3, you might get water, you might get white, you might get brown. You know, there are different kinds of gestalts, but those tend to be important. And then, of course, you'll get all of your normal sensory things: visuals, sounds, smells, taste, tactile sensations. Yes, emotions. If there are emotions there, if someone is very, very happy, you'll be able to pick that up. If they're very, very sad, you'll be able to pick that up. And then also just general ideas. Somehow what's being displayed is an idea, and that'll come through. The subconscious will talk to you in many, many different ways. But that's what the photo side is. It's something which, when the analyst looks at it, it will be obvious because that's all they have to look at and compare. Now, here's an example. Going to the site, you can hear the sounds. You certainly can infer them from here. But we've now introduced something we call HAG. HAG stands for Harsh Analysis with Gestalt. In this case, you know, it's pretty clear there are people around, but there are a lot of cases where you make, and too often people will make marginal assumptions about what's outside the picture. So we're now using HAG as a baseline, which would say, hey, there are no people here. And every now and then when a picture like this comes up, if I feel really strongly about it, instead of giving people a full point, I give it a half a point when I do judging, and you'll understand a little bit later. So might cheat a little bit with HAG, but the going in position is it needs to be here. And obviously verified from the photo. Practice, practice, practice like a doctor or a shaman. I hope you now get the sense that ARV in principle, once you accept that precognition is real, and I don't think you would be here if you didn't accept it, the idea is pretty simple. Okay, there are 2 possible targets, and we are going to use the best match to make a prediction about up and down. And our targets are photosites. I want to show one last graphic which connects, again, the remote viewing session and the feedback session. And notice in many ways they are real. Here, of course, you pay a lot of attention to the real one, but here you're paying attention to the information coming from your sub about this one. But in both cases, you're describing and sketching them. Starts here. Here's your sub. Okay, so information is transmitted down to your sub both ways. Here's your sub doing a handshake back in time when we start thinking of time going both ways. And that's really only one model of time. There are lots of other models like eternal. So all this was happening at once. But this makes a lot more sense to a lot of people, I think, where you're sharing the information, but it's like a handshake. When you have a handshake, both things are entangled together strongly. Under all of this, well, first, what is that entangled energy? Well, intention, expectation, the other one that's always added, which is important, is attention. You're paying attention to what's going on in both stages, and that encourages the entanglement, but also emotion. really getting into the site any way you can, just making it real as if you were there, that sort of thing. And also the emotion of loving the fact that you're doing this, loving it at both ends is a kind of entanglement. And that's one of the reasons we always like people to do their specific target reference number out loud. Oh, I kind of love this process with this target reference number. Oh, yeah, and you do the same thing here and you say it out loud. Now, under here is the UCC. Everything ultimately comes from the UCC, and everything is back in the UCC. The UCC never forgets. So this is where the information is coming from and is shared. So this is another model of how ARV, in fact, works, connecting the remote viewing session and the feedback session. Yeah, bring that love in there. The primary benefit of ARV and applying precognition is creating a strong working relationship with your subconscious mind. I don't know how to overemphasize that. So, that's the only way I can say it. Your subconscious mind is, and you know this, you've got these now things that are happening. You're aware of what's going on right now, and then you go on to the next one, then you go on to the next one. But all of that goes down through your subconscious mind, and it gets into the UCC. Hey, and this UCC is like the matrix. Ingo Swann called it the matrix. There's a agnostic record. I'm sure other people have given it other names. It's the deepest you can imagine. It's consciousness is fundamental. But whatever you want to call these non-physical aspects of you in the universe, what you're learning is to communicate, to build up this relationship with your subconscious mind to get more reliable information. Okay, questions about this? Comments? Oh, you got stuff here. Okay. I look at misses with baseball regular, the best players, which means they miss 60% of the time. That is exactly right. Yes, this is being recorded. Where the negative stuff usually comes up is because we're doing something which is 50-50, and let's say your hit rate is 55%, which is where a lot of people are for a while, but you want to get it up to 65% so you can become a precog pro, or 70% or 80%, or how about 100%? I don't know if that's possible, but hell, if we can become a Gandhi, why can't you be 100%? So somebody asked me that. They asked me that privately, but they look at it like baseball, where you expect misses, and yes, but the idea is to improve your hit rate. Okay, this will be recorded. Yes, obviously you want to learn. Right on. Brian, this is recorded, so you can get the beginning later. Thank you. It's great. Very interesting. Thanks. Okay. So I think I'm caught up on the comments too. If no other comments, let's go and let's do a prediction. We've talked about it, and this is where we're going to do the learn by doing. So we will do a prediction. First thing is everybody here registered in the webinar workshop? I put out a note, 3 of you. I added, the rest of you may be from earlier ones. Okay, I'm going to assume that's true. If not, we'll handle it later. But this is important because this is the tasking. And those of you who are really brand new, we've done everything we know how to make this user-friendly. Everybody says that, but you be the judge. Here is, and everything is done through email. Here is the tasking for transcripts due today. Notice here's the group. We have lots and lots of investment groups, I think, and sporting groups. We might be up to, I don't know, 14, 15 now. And whatever group you're in, it'll show up right there. And now it'll give you the date the transcript is due, and it's due today. And this event, sometimes people will put in what the event is. I decided to leave this one blank, but after we do the prediction, I will tell you what it is. And then the start time of the actual event is actually going to be months away into the future, but it's due today. And then you would click right here. Now, since it's a PowerPoint slide, you can't click there, but I copied the link over here so I could copy it. And all you would do is click, and then this is what comes up. I'm assuming you all are getting this, or at least most of you are getting this from the webinar, but in case some of you are not, I'm going to send that link here now. So when you click that link, this comes up and you put in your email address. That's uniquely you. You put in your email address, webinar workshop is chosen. As soon as you click here, you will get your coordinate. So my coordinate, if I'm going to do this, and I don't quite know if I feel like I'll have time, but my coordinate, and you should write that down on the top of a blank sheet of paper, or some of you have words to guide you, but you'll get your own personal coordinate, and you have your own personal target. This target reference number is unique to you. Okay, so I've showed you this, and I've shown you this. And it's time for us to do an RV session. We will come back here after you got your RV session, because then you will upload your transcript. But for now, oldies, people who feel comfortable doing this and don't want to hear sort of, I've got a little more guidance and some stuff to say, but some of you I know will go ahead, and that's absolutely fine. This is something that Russ Targ did, but it's a little bit too long. Plus, I don't have any good way. Well, let me just try this. I'm going to turn it on, and I want to see if you're hearing it. I'm going to give you this link. Again, this is really worthwhile. This is the Russ Targ talk he did with Jeff Mishloff. Okay, I'm not hearing the sound. I suspect you guys aren't hearing the sound anyway. When it comes from there, something about bandwidth or whatever. So when you want to do that, do it on your own. Do it on your own machine. It's worth watching. It's relatively short, but it's definitely worth watching. He talks about the session that Jeff did, and one of the really key points he made is he asked Jeff first, cooled him down. But the first thing Jeff said, I think the target is Macy's. And that's naming it way too high level. Now, most of us don't have interviewers, so we need to learn to do it ourselves. But the key to that is to just let the sub be your guide and only ask questions of stuff which the sub has already brought up. He says mental noise to avoid are things like naming, memory, where things are coming from your memory, imagination, analysis, guessing, grasping, all that's left brain ego stuff. And one of the really beautiful things that happens as you get into ARV more and more is you begin to distinguish between what's coming from your ego, what's coming from your left brain versus your really right brain, which is much more, I don't know, spiritual, it has access to the UCC. It's not as ego driven. Here's another thing he said, which I think is very important. I always ask a viewer to tell me, what are you experiencing? What is the shape or form? Tell me about the surprising image that appears in your awareness. Notice the key word is surprising. Surprises don't come from your ego. Surprises come from your subconscious. And it's that sort of feeling that you want to be able to distinguish from the stuff that comes from your ego. Okay, we're getting ready to do this. Those of you that are still with me, I can send something like this to you. It's like a reminder of all the kinds of things which your subconscious can communicate through your nervous system. Textures, colors, smells, tastes. You get a sense of dimension, sounds, dynamics, temperatures, emotional impacts. These gestalts tend to come in early, but not always, and there's just a place for them. Most people actually have developed their own technique, but here's a place for sketches. Analytical overlays, those are things that you really identify as coming from your intellect, ego, past experiences. You get red, brown, and you say basketball. Well, you've already named it, which makes it an analytical overlay. So you just put it over here. And that's an analytical overlay, but it's also a trash thing, because now you can go back and get quiet again and ask your sub for more information. So most people start with a sheet of paper, put the coordinate at the top. They'll put your name and date and time. And you can even say it out loud here, but then when you're ready to start, you write the coordinate, and immediately after, if you're brand new, I suggest doing a squiggle. If you get trained by certain people, they'll call it an ideogram, it'll be a pictogram. It just kind of gets things started. Ingo Swan actually said, all the information has now come up right there. And the rest of it is decoding it and getting it a bit slower so you can make a transcript out of it. So here's our cue with your target reference number here. Cool down. Getting rid of the day-to-day stuff is important. I'm going to give you a link so that you can listen. It's going to be 10 minutes. Use again, all of this is very individualized, but if you're a newbie, use like 2 to 5 of the 10 minutes for just a breathing cool down. Just focus on your breath as other thoughts come in, day-to-day thoughts or whatever, just let them go. If any negative thoughts come in, like this is the stupidest thing I ever thought of, add love to it. We're going to be use the ARV strategy here. And really get focused in the now with your breathing, and then you're going to move to your deep mind, to your target. You're going to go and then ask your subconscious to give you information. The only job the ego has is just to maintain the transcript protocol, to be there with the conscious now moment mind to put things down on the transcript. And at about 2 minutes, a narrator will come on, remind you to turn inward. And I will tell you when there's a minute left. And a lot of people like to have some sort of background music or hemisync. This is hemisync. And let me give you this. So you can turn this on. Everyone, you can turn this on yourself and listen to it in your comfort of your remote viewing session. And I will be back with you in about 9 minutes. Okay, why don't you take 1 minute more, perhaps get another element, another precept from your sub, or you may already be done and just relaxing. I just had a little bite to eat. Okay, come on back to your normal, whatever that is, self. Um, we get through the track. Okay, let's see. Things we'll do. Are we describing the location? Okay, just stretch and come on back to normal. I'm in the chat box now, and the question is, are we describing a location? You're describing what is at a location, the photo site idea. You're about to see, well, you'll see an example from last year, but there will be a feedback photo site. So there is some specific physical site in the universe. It might not even be Earth. You know, a photo site can be a picture of the moon. And that is what you're to describe. I wonder if there's a tutorial somewhere on using Zoom meeting program. I've had a rough time figuring things out. Okay, welcome back. Let's see. Dennis, I don't know what, mostly you just need to watch it. And listen, have you been hearing me, Dennis? Well, if you've been hearing me and seeing me, that's all there is to do. Okay, well, that's all there is to do. Now, maybe you couldn't find the chat box, and that's true. You need to look around a little bit, and you'll find that. And hopefully, you know how to turn your mic off. But there's nothing else for you to do. I'm recording it. I have to learn a little bit more, but from your perspective, it's pretty straightforward. Okay, so with all that chatter, I presume you're all back. You now have in front of you your transcript for your target reference number or coordinate. And what happens next? Well, next is the analysis portion. And we asked a yes/no question. Well, okay. As opposed to up or down or things like that. But we asked a yes/no question. And what we need to do is match the transcripts to the two possible targets, because there are two possible answers here. And sorry. So how do we do that? This is where the analysis comes in, and I need each of you to go back. Let me see if I can. You go back to the page where you got your coordinate, and one person asked, how does my transcript get into here? And this is how your transcript gets in with your coordinate. And so we can do the judging and keep records. One of the things we do is we keep very detailed records, so you'll have a history. And so your hit rate becomes something which we chart and follow, and you can use that hopefully to improve yourself. So you need to go back here and upload your transcript. Now, I know some of you have already done that and are probably doing it as we speak. If some of you are having trouble, let me know. But you click the browse button, and your transcript, which starts out usually on a piece of paper, but some people now are doing it right on their computer directly. You need to get it from that piece of paper into your computer. You can take a picture of it. A lot of people now with their smartphones simply take a picture of it, send it to their computer, know where it is, and they browse, and then they click submit. Now, um, this page, after you do the submit, again, I'm not seeing any questions about it, so I'm assuming you're all able to get your transcript from this page, which is where you got your coordinate. You're browsing and finding it and then submitting it, because it's only after you submit it that you get to see the two photo sites. As soon as you click the submit button, a photo site, now I've covered it with yellow. I just didn't want to show you any more pictures than I need to, to confuse you with your target. So I've just covered it. But up will come a picture with these words: analysis judging page. The two possible photo sites are first shown individually and then together. Be sure to scroll down and enter your confidence rankings and comments. And for your newbies, I'll be talking about confidence rankings shortly. But right away, as soon as you hit the submit button, your first photo site will come up. And that's photo site A. Each of you have a different one. And then you scroll down further, and you have to, and I'm just reminding, and this is what it actually says on that page. Please remember, you must judge photo site A and photo site B with equal attention and ignore the other possible photo site as you analyze one at a time. So I bring them up first one at a time. Sometimes it'll be a good match with the other, and they'll neglect doing a good job on the second one, and indeed it'll be even a better match or a similar match. It's just important to do both. And then you scroll down a little further, and then comes this with both photo site A and photo site B. And your job is to come up with a 0 to 7 ranking using the TARG confidence ranking scale. I'll be showing you that shortly. And all you do is use these pull down boxes and choose the one closest to yours. And putting in comments here. These comments are basically for you, because you can come back later, and these are all saved with your photo site A and B and transcripts and all that. Now here's the TARG confidence ranking system. 0. So what are we comparing? You compare your transcript first to photo site A, and then you're going to get a confidence ranking. We call them a CR. And then you'll do the same thing with photo site B. To the best possible worlds, you'd get like a 1, which is little correspondence for one of the possible targets, but then a high CR for the other. But you might not. You might get 2 lows, in which case you simply pass. But let's go over these. So 0 is no correspondence. That turns out to be very difficult. 1 is, yeah, you've got a little correspondence. 2, and I'm going to show you how to quantify this in a moment, but nevertheless, this is what you're saying. And if the other approach I give you doesn't agree with this, you should go by something like these words. 2 is some correct elements, but not sufficient to suggest results beyond chance expectations. So if you had a monkey at a typewriter writing some words against some picture, there might be some matches, but they'd be random. So you just expect a few matches, perhaps. 3 is right on the edge. You now do have some psychic functioning. Mixture of correct and incorrect elements, but enough of the former, the correct elements, to indicate the viewer has made contact with the target. We consider that to be on the edge. What we really want are 4s, which are good correspondence with several matchable elements, intermixed with some incorrect information. We do consider 3.5. If you put for a CR 3.5, you've now said, I believe this is, in fact, wagerable. This is a good enough match that I would bet a few bucks on it. But it gets even higher. Okay, so good correspondence, but then Russ starts using stronger words. Good correspondence, again, but with unambiguous, unique, matchable elements, but some incorrect information. And I used to ask people, what do they mean by unambiguous? And, you know, you would come up with something that's really, it had to be this one. 6 goes up, and so does 7, to analytical overlay, where you might name it or name the function of the target. And then 7 is like excellent with no incorrect information. The amount of incorrect information keeps going down as you get higher and higher, and the amount of correct information goes up, which then led to what we now call HAG, harsh analysis with gestalts. And the history of this is kind of worth understanding. I showed you what Russ did, and we used that a long time, and we made our judgments 0 to 7. You know, it was okay, but Joe McMonagle came along, and he said he believed this idea of gestalts was so important that you get sort of the main things, the main ideas, without naming, but the main stuff going on in the photo side, and that ought to be worth half of the analysis. And then Tom McNair wanted to add the word harsh in a nice way, and that actually modifies an analytical equation I'm about to show you now. So the harsh, ungentle, and unpleasant in action. And sometimes the choices are unpleasant, like leaving out a match with person if, you know, it's not in the photo site. And then the basis of all of this is to mark all elements with an A and or a B or nothing. So if there's a match of an element, and notice that's what Rux Targ was talking about, each element, that might be a sketch, it might be a word. If it's photo site A, you might mark that with an A. If, you know, even though you're being harsh, like you want to give it a little something, you can still be harsh and give it a little A or give it a little B, and we'll count those as halves. Or if it doesn't match A, you don't put anything. It might not match B either, so you'll end off with elements which will have nothing. So you get harsh with photo site A, be especially, and I love these words, and these are Tom's words, especially rigorous, assiduous, judicious, and discerning when assessing the correlation of data elements to possible target site A. If it doesn't strictly correlate to photo site target A, don't count it. Don't allow confirmation bias to creep in. You know, you want it to be this, you had some further matches, and well, maybe this confirms it. Don't do that. And then the same thing for B. And then we get to the gestalts. I call these first impression gestalts because they're the kind of thing you would get when you just took a quick look at something. And first impression gestalts can be between 0 and 1 in terms of the matches. A color could be a first impression gestalt. If there's a woman wearing a bright red dress and that's all that's there, red might be the gestalt and the person. So that's sort of, and if you first quick look at it, that's what you would get. Later, you might get the location of her hands and, is she kneeling or not kneeling, stuff like that. Okay, now, so here's the way you count. We're going to have you count up only the data elements you've labeled A or B and use the sum of these elements as a denominator. So I'm going to give an example, which again, this is for the newbies. I'm sure some of you are already doing this. But here is the formula. It's not a complicated formula. Remember, the first impression gestalt is between 0 and 1. So that's for the photosite A. And then the number of elements you marked as matching A, and capital A's count as 1, little a's count as a half. So you count up all of your elements who are A's, and then you divide by the total number of data elements. No halves now. If you had a little a on something, it would count as, yep, that is a data element that was marked. So all we ignore are the ones that have neither A or B on it. If it has both A and B, you just count it again as one data element. So you're counting the total number of marked data elements. So then this is a number between 0 and 1. And so how many did you mark for A? And then we multiply this on the outside because the inside of these parentheses is a maximum of 2, and we multiply by 3.5. And then you do the same thing for B. Here's an example. So here's the transcript. Here's the target. And it turned out it was photosite B for A. He gave it a 3 and a 5. And we went back and actually marked it the way, it's a little big here so you can't see the words, but I don't care. For what we're talking about now, the key point is that right up front, he said something which you can read, which is water energy. Obviously, that was a B, right? That's photosite B, and that was a fig. So we wrote fig there. And then all of these other A's, doesn't look like there were any little A's here, but here's a little B. Here's a little B. Here's another B with a fig. Here's another B with a fig. There's an A with a fig. But now what you can do is you can count how many A's did you have. Well, he had 7 A's marked and 9.5 B's. So that little B there is in the count. The total number of elements marked was 15. His fig for A was 0.25. The fig for B was 0.75. So therefore, you go through, here was the equation again, but here it's even more obvious. For the A's, there's the fig, 0.25, plus 7 divided by 15 times 3.5, and that leads to 2.5. So this is giving the HAG analysis 2.5, and then here's the same thing with the 0.75 for fig. Here's a 9.5 divided by 15, and here you get 4.8. So Tony's analysis, just doing it using straight TARG CRs, was 3 and a 5. The hash was 2.5, harsh was 2.5 and 4.8. So this would go in as a 5. This would go in as a 2.5. We do have those numbers. I know I've taken a lot of time, but this is very important. And you need to take as much time as it takes to do good analysis. Because remember, it's from this analysis where you make a prediction. At this point in time, all that Tony knew was that he got a good match with photosite B. He doesn't even know until a little later, and I'll be showing you that, whether or not that's yes or no. So hopefully you're all doing that. I know some of you have probably already done it, and I am now going to show you something that most people don't ever see. And I am going to go into my group manager mode. Okay, so again, as a group manager, I lay out the taskings. I'm now going to get information on the predictions. And so we're doing the webinar workshop group. So I've marked that. And okay, so I've got that. And now I have to choose the right one, and that's this one here. And I can see that because I know the event to be announced. Okay, and there's, okay, so that's the one I want. And once I click that, yep, look at all that you guys have done. Oh, this is great. Oh, this is great. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people, 2 newbies with no history to be done. Oh, in fact, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so let me, oh, here's a 6.5 right off the bat. So let's just take a look. And we're only going to be doing samplings of this because, you know, limitation of time. And remember, this is mostly and is a learning workshop. But here is Alethea, and she gave a 6.5. Now, and these numbers won't mean much to you, but they do to me. She gave a 6.5 to photosite A. So here's Alethea down here. So let's just look at her photosite A. Okay. And because she uploaded it to our server, which is where I'm getting it, I can now see her transcript. Okay. Now let me see if I can get both of those next to each other so that we can kind of see if we believe it. And if you've got there, if you've got your mic, okay, so let me put this here and that there. There we go. Okay, Alicia, are you still here?
Yes, I am.
Okay, beautiful. So why don't you know you gave this a high score?
Yes.
And why don't you tell us why? And did you use the HAG approach?
This is the first time I'm on one of your calls, but I
Mhm.
took Joe McMonigal's RV1 and 2, and so I'm used to scoring on the 1 to 7 scale.
Okay,
It's very similar. So, and I was having
that's fair.
trouble a little bit with the calculations there of what with the 2 pictures, but
Okay,
anyway,
okay.
I drew. My first impressions were that there was some peaks. And so landscape kind of feeling, and then there are parallel lines leading up to it. So that's what I wrote. 2 distinct peaks or points rising above the flat foreground. There's multiple parallel lines flowing across the photo, a sense of motion, something was moving from left to right. And the colors, which are usually my signature hits, are that there was blue, green, sandy brown colors, gray with white accents in the picture. And so when I saw that, I'm like, oh, of course, that's what that was. It really felt very strongly
So I
that that
gave it a 6. Okay, so let me go over and see how the HAG would work. I don't see blue. I
in the,
certainly see green. You
okay.
think there's blue in the smoke? You think
Yeah, I was
that's
seeing blue in the sky in the upper right a little bit when I blew the picture up. But
okay? There's certainly green. There's certainly sandy brown. There's certainly gray and white accents. So that is really strong. Sense of motion, that's really strong. Parallel lines, that's good. Yeah, you're 2 peaks. Maybe, yeah, maybe. That's kind of marginal. What would you say would be a first impression gestalt match here? I think maybe I'm going to
The
add some.
if I was to name it when I was doing it, and I try to, Joe doesn't want us naming stuff. I would have
Right.
said it was mountains with a road by it. That's what I
No,
would
no.
have said,
Yeah,
but I
but the
didn't want.
first, but what I mean by first impression gestalts is stuff that you have here, like your lines and also all your colors. Were really good. So,
So,
the only.
that's why I gave it a high confidence of the
Yep,
6.5,
yep,
because I couldn't
yep.
find, the only thing possibly, the blue wasn't as pronounced to me. I saw it in the sky a little bit, but that's fine. But
Right.
so the only thing that didn't really apply is possibly one of the colors.
So you see these being too distinct. Yep.
Hmm.
Okay.
Or the
And looking at it from this angle, you would get that exact. You would get that exactly. Very good. Okay. So, everybody, I think it's so useful to use this because you see the way other people do it. You didn't use an ideogram. Does Joe teach ideograms, or does he not use
not.
those?
No, he doesn't.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's mostly the CRV people that use ideograms, and probably others. Anyway.
So since I have the mic unmuted for a second, so when we're putting the confidence levels in this
Mhm.
case, since I felt very strongly it was this one, was I still supposed to click and submit a number of like 0 or 1 or 2 for the other one, or only if you're not sure you put numbers for both?
No, you 100%. You put numbers for both.
Oh, you do. Okay.
100%, and you go through. I would be surprised, and I don't even want to see the other picture. Well, no, we're judging. Let's look at the other picture. Yeah, let's do that. Let's do that. Again, this is good for everybody. So we did photo side A. Let's look at photo side B, because I'm going to maintain typically there are some matches. Like I see blue already, right?
Okay.
So using this technique where you get to actually put numbers once you understand that, there are no people. I don't see any real parallel lines. If there'd been 2 people, this might work, but with 3, no. Sense of motion, no. White accents, maybe a little. So yeah, so I would say maybe this is somewhere between a 0 and a 1, and that's what you would put in there.
Okay, thank you.
And yeah, and I don't know if you submitted it yet, but that's just, yeah, you obviously did.
Yeah, I left the other one as I didn't put anything in there just because I didn't think
You
that was
didn't
it.
know what to do, but yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, excellent, and thank you. Okay, so I want, just because I don't have too many things open, let's get rid of that and that. And let me, well, I just want to actually see what they put in. Interesting. If you leave it blank, it looks like it comes in as a 0. But anyway, you should put in a thing. Okay, let's see who else. Firestorm is Lila. I haven't seen one of yours for a long time. What did you give as a judge? Here you are. A 3.5 and a 2.5. Okay, if you don't mind. She has a somewhat different style. And that's one of the points I always like to make here. Everybody has their own style. I'm not going to do yours today because they're close, Lila. Okay, here's a 5 and a 7. So this makes the point that you can have 2 high ones. And let's see how different we have here. So let's look at Ellie. Again, we're doing this to learn, and presumably some of the rest of you newbies are finishing. So the 7 is side 2 here, side B. So first, let's take a look at that. Okay. Ellie, and there's the transcript for Ellie. See what that looks like. I will be able to rotate that. It takes a little time, but it's worth it. So I use that. And I open up this editor, and then I can rotate the image. Okay. So there's the image. And what happened to my, oh, it's up here. Okay, so I'm not going to make, let's just look at it from here. I think this is good enough. Ellie, you want to turn your mic on, or you're on the phone?
No, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Oh, yep, we can. Okay. So looking at this, certainly this, well, go ahead. You tell us, why you gave this a 7. A 7, that's cool.
So even art, I'm not the best artist. So
Uh-huh.
what I saw over here, and unfortunately I did label it, I saw something jutting out. It was even higher than this. It was jutting out, and it felt very big, like a rock or a hill or something very large to the corner. And then I saw water running right next to it. And then I saw
Yeah.
another object coming right out of it again, hard, metallic, brown, black. I didn't draw any of that. And so then I just left it because I knew what I saw, but I didn't really write or record a lot. And then when I saw this image at the target came back, it hit me, it just really hit me viscerally. And it was like, oh God, this is a really strong match for me, what I saw.
Right. Okay. Again, you didn't quite use the HAG approach.
No, I just learned the HAG approach today.
Right. And I'll tell you the reason. I'm not sure. This is certainly good. Please don't get me wrong. I mean, you got the water, you got all the shapes here. What do you think this is?
Oh, that was if you look at picture A, those were on the other picture that was sent over. Those were very similar in the lines and what I saw to picture A.
So how did you, what confidence ranking?
Okay.
Okay, but notice that takes away from a perfect match a 7. To get a 7, you have to get everything on your page right and give it a fig of 1. That's
Okay,
the only.
Yes, I'm going to interrupt you because I didn't know that prior to doing that. And I went by, how confident am I that this is going to match this part will match.
Right, and I understand. And you said high confidence, and I can understand why. But I would say, just looking at this, this is probably a healthy wind generator. It's interesting.
That was for picture A.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, both of these go for A.
No, this wind generator thing ended up on A. I saw this, and that's why I drew the line, because then I got this. And so I got both. It was as if I got both, I got both images, A and B, and then didn't know what to do with them. So then when I saw this, I said, okay, this is the answer. This is what I'm looking for.
But some of this did match the other picture.
Yes.
Okay. And all that tells me is it wouldn't be a 7 if you did it with an analytical HAG approach. But I think it would easily be a 5.
Okay.
So this was a good match. I really do recommend the HAG approach. I think it'll be good for everybody to do it, and you just learn how to get into it. The
Right.
issue here of the fig, well, water is clearly a fig. You pick that up right away. And I think this shape might very well be a fit. The fact that the word might not be exactly right, though this is certainly rock-like, but the shape of this I would give credit. For. Okay, that's excellent. Again, thank you.
No, thank you, Marty. Learning. Thank you.
Yeah, you guys stay with me and I do my informal and it somehow seems to work. Okay. Let's see what else. Let's go. So no, that's something else. Did I lose? No, nope, I lost it.
Marty, quick question.
Yeah, go ahead.
If we want to, if we go on with our computer, is there a place to look up the target number and get the two pictures again? So, because I like to usually print them out and have them next to my work just as a record. So I can look.
If you use the same link you used to get your coordinate the first time, you will get that same coordinate.
So I go
And
back through the chat box and go there. Okay. And then
but you do have to submit something. However, it will not let you make a second submission. The first one is the one that counts, period.
okay. Okay.
Yeah, right.
I can still pull it up. Okay, very good.
But you can still pull it up.
Okay, thank you very much. And that link is still in the chat box, right? I can scroll back to find it. The one that you did.
Well,
Stuff.
yes, for this one it is.
Thanks.
Or you can actually go into the webinar workshop Google page.
Okay, thank you.
And if all else fails, you can send me an email. I'm an email guy. Okay, so let's do this again. I lost it. Okay, so now we're back to where we have everybody's. Let me just look at the summary here. And let's see, we did Ellie. Fire was 3.5 and 2.5. There's a pass. Okay, well, maybe I will do you. I think I have time for one more. So let's take a look at Fire Soul Rider, who I know. Let's find you here. There you go. Oops, and which one did you give the highest to? You gave it to A. I just want to verify that. Yeah, there's A, and that was, see, now for the first time I can see, I didn't even know that's yes. Okay, Fire Soul Rider A. So you're also getting, for the newbies, the sense that the pictures can be of anything. And now let me get your transcript. So they always come in at an angle. Just bear with me for a minute. And you can turn your mic on, because I would like you.
I forget if you would like me to send it with my judging.
Yeah, if any of you would like to do that, then I can show it next time. We won't do it this time, just because of time.
Okay.
Yeah, but yeah, do send it along.
Okay.
And in fact, that's a good thing. I could have asked for that earlier, and then I might have been able to use it. But we are running out of time here, so let's go and rotate the camera. And I got that. This, no, There we go. Okay, Lila, so tell us what was going on here. Show us the matches. Did you use the HAG analytic approach?
You know,
Yeah,
Marty, I'm sorry. I missed that presentation and I want to go back and listen to it so I know what it is.
Okay.
But you know, I've been doing this for about 5 years now, I guess.
And I have to add that the viewer is in charge. So some people will always feel comfortable with just looking at TARG and knowing it. And the viewer is in charge. I'm not going to violate that in any way.
Thank you.
So we can look at this and you can see she has a different style. She puts her, I think you actually start by putting stuff down here.
I do it as it comes. My very first
Yeah.
gestalt was the squiggly line on the left, that one.
Mhm,
Yeah.
mhm.
That was the first one. And then words come to me, the precepts come to me, and
Right.
in between the other gestalts come, or the other figs, I guess. Well,
Right. Okay. Well, they
So-
might, like outdoors is a fig. You know, it's not enough to give you a 1, but outdoors is a
Mhm.
fig here.
So my matches were
Mhm.
pretty, let's see, were outdoors. My textures, all 3 of them, smooth, hard, and pockmarked,
Now, pockmarked is an interesting word.
isn't it?
Yeah.
I know. Kind
You
of
know,
like cement. Cement is
yeah.
pockmarked. And that's what I was getting an impression of cement and pockmarking. And I can't help but think that I don't know what the surface, I don't know if that's dirt, but if it is cement, a really hot fire could pockmark cement. I've seen it. Car fires do that to cement. So I don't see why an airliner fire wouldn't do it too.
Yeah, well, I agree the word, and that's an unusual word. I think it matches. Occasionally, I give a 1.5, a 1.5
Oh,
for surprise words like that in my technique, because I think that's particularly good. It might also be a
okay.
fig. And the surprise, that's kind of a surprise word, clearly came out of your sub.
I don't know that I've ever used it in any of my prior sessions. Which is,
Exactly.
sometimes I come up with these words and I go, wow, that's a new one. Okay. So I pay attention to those. I pay a lot of attention.
Yes. And
So
that's good for everybody to hear, because they should do that in their judging as well.
Yeah. Another new word that came up for me is in the colors, whitewashed. But I don't really see whitewashed in that photo.
No, I don't either. I see white, but not whitewashed.
Right.
But I see people as an AOL.
Yeah, me too.
That was
And I had a
good.
busy feeling. I had a feeling of being busy. And that's what these guys are doing. They're busy inspecting.
Yep. And yet you only gave yourself a 3.5. I'm going to rush you a little bit because I really want to go to the next one. I mean, just listening to you talk, it sounds like looking at TARG, I would give even higher.
Okay. Now, is that my feedback, or is that the correct photo, or is that's just photo site A?
That's the one that you judged as a 3.5.
Yes. Okay. You're not going to look at B?
No.
Okay.
Well, that was the highest one. But all I'm saying, sitting here, and this is always what I do, is just giving you my honest reflections, is I would have given that more than a 3.5.
Oh, thank you, Marty.
Yeah, I didn't.
All right.
Right.
Well,
I didn't look at the other one, and I didn't do HAG, but that looked pretty good. Okay. Let me now, looking at all of this, and I want to emphasize to all of you, I always make a group prediction, because the only way we can be organized here to get all this stuff is to have groups. And so I will make a group prediction. But what really matters is your own, and you learn about your own. Like, something like a 7, hopefully you understand that that was too high, but that was in the no direction. Here's a pass. Here's one in the yes direction. So the two in the yes direction. I looked at yours. I thought yours was pretty good. This was a 6.5. That looked pretty good too. So we had two good yeses and one no. As you're going to see later, I was burned when it was 2-1. I'm actually going to show you that when we do the feedback from the last one. I tell you something, regular judging and group judging is difficult. I do have a yes there, which was pretty good. But the one no, even though it wasn't a 7, it was a 5. I'm going to pass. Better safe than sorry. And I was one of those people, and I did it last time, that tends not to pass. Remember the one that says, don't be a wimp? And also, people have put in so much time. How can you pass? But I did. I didn't on the last one, as you're going to see. It led to a miss. I'm going to pass here. Okay, so this goes in as a pass, which doesn't change anything of yours. The outcome, which won't be known for a while, is independent of what I do. Now, I'm going to show you, I think I still have it open, here it is, what the tasking is for this one. Will Joe Biden be the Democratic Party nominee for next president of the USA? I have not been happy with my hit-miss record as the group. And I think one of the possibilities would be I've been doing the same thing. Maybe it's getting boring. Anyway, this seemed like an interesting one. So it won't be until the Democratic convention that we'll know if the answer to this is yes or no. And that's when the feedback will come. So we've been using the webinar workshops to do long-term predictions. And so far, they're at like the 55%. But, we get a lot of newbies, and this is an unusual environment. So it is what it is. Okay, so you understand that? So now you understand what the tasking is. Hell, if you wanted to, there's places you can wager on that. Okay, so now let's go on to the feedback from last month. And I just use this as a reminder. I didn't use it before, but I need to use it once each time because it's so important. And it's important for all phases of ARV. And that is to maintain intention, attention, and positive expectation. Positive intention, full attention. And what are you paying attention to? You're paying attention to yourself. What's going on in your conscious mind. If negatives come up, you're going to give it love. Now, okay, and you've seen this. Now here is the new task, which was a new task for last month. Notice the dates, the 2nd of January to the 4th. And here I did write what the event was in the tasking. And here it was, will SPY, which basically follows the S&P 500 divided by 10, move up between these dates, okay? And just like you did today, people did transcripts last time, and there were 2 strong PSAs, which were no, and 1 weak for B, and so I went with no, even though it was 2-1. And as you're about to see, here is the chart for SPY going back to, here's the 2nd of January. Here's the prices over here. It isn't close here, so the detail prices don't matter. But 323 or something like that. The S&P was 3,230 or so. But then yesterday, which was the 4th, it's up here. So the answer is it went up. So the answer was yes. So the outcome is yes, which was photo site B. So it turns out the group one was a miss, but one person got a hit. I'm going to show you that. Plus another person came in late, so I couldn't use them. But I'm going to show you something about them now. Now, if you were one of the people who submitted, you can do your feedback session now. Oh, let me give you, here is the link. And you would put your email address in here. Again, for newbies, this is really user-friendly. This link comes from an email sent to you. But let me put this in the chat box to everybody. Okay. Right, so this is the way the email would come to you. You would click there, and you would get what you just saw, and you'd put it in, and you would see your feedback picture. Now, here, I went in, remember I have access, as you just saw, to the transcripts and to what would be and what is the correct one, which remember was photosite. Just verify, etc. Yep, photosite B, which was the yes. And so here, the two confidence rankings were 3.5 and 4, which are really very close. I actually recommend, but the viewer is in charge, if they're this close, you make the 3.5 a 4, or you make the 4 a 3. If these two numbers are the same, it'll be a pass. And when they're this close, it says you've got so many matches for both sides. Let's just call it a pass. But again, the viewer is in charge. What I wanted to talk about here was the first impression gestalts, which the analytical part of marking all of these, there's some questions all the time. Should you leave it off, do a little A? Some are real easy, but the fig is a bit harder. This fig was not hard because look what she has here. TikTok, alarming. Alarm is close enough. I claim this was obvious fig, and I could see giving this, a 1, maybe a 0.9. Different people have different styles. If I were to ask 10 people to do this transcript and this, the figs would probably vary between 0.75 and 1 because there's not more. Other people might be looking like, I see a lot of verticals here, and that may be why she gave it a 4. Okay, now let's go to this next one. This one came late. It was done a day late. And, some of you who are in the webinar group, if you can't make this and you want to do it a day or two late, that's okay, since we're talking about something which are months away. I won't be able to use it for my group prediction, but as I say, that's not real important. But here, this one seems to be a little bit different, and we saw that a bit earlier. I do see a fig here. This is the main element. But if you put together look how good this is back here. Okay, I mean, this is a really good match. And we got silver gray, silver, red, quiet, hard. So many of the elements, if you put all those together, you know, except for a better sketch, I think this is a pretty good fig, you know, maybe, I don't know, 0.5 to 0.75. And some may even want to say higher if they think these together are a really good description of that. So what I'm pointing out here is, and I've been asked this, tell me exactly how to do the fig. I'll give you the answer. I can't. The fig, which is very important, half of the value is something which, by watching your hits and misses, and when you do your feedback session, pay attention to what you wish you had done for a fig. You know, like here, a couple of loops, almost like those mountains, a couple of loops and something down for a sketch. That'd be the kind of fig, you know, which would really make it. Notice there was nothing here about, she got hard, but she didn't get metal. Structure, few words like that. You know, a rock is hard, but didn't distinguish this as a structure. So during your feedback session, add those kinds of words, knowing and telling your subconscious that, you know, that would have been a great fig to have, and give me something like that in the future. And if you berate yourself a little bit for not doing better, add love in there at the same time. This is part of your learning. This is terrific that all of this stuff is coming up, and that structure came up to be added here, that sort of thing. So I hope this is making sense to you. Okay, so the fig is very important. I do believe, and I'm using it now, and so far I think it's a real positive. The hardest part, frankly, is the fig. And sometimes it's really easy, like with the watch, but sometimes I have to make a analysis and a judgment, and that's just what I think you'll do. But in that process, you will be improving your figs for the future. The right words to get as the gestaltish description. So, winding this up, hey, what are you going to do for hits? You know what? Encourage more hits by basically being happy. Enjoy the feeling. Notice all the matches. Do quick session with matches, plus add a little more, like our example here with the fig. Add structure. Add a little sketch that would have been really helpful. Don't trace it. Do the kind of RV sketches that you've been doing, but it'll match. And then feel really happy about all this. Thank your sub, be grateful, all those kind of really good things. This is terrific. The universe really is put this way. And this is both your sub, your ego, all of that. It stayed in protocol. It did its job. So, you know, everything is working pretty much as it should. Have an M&M. That comes from Miko Swan. He always used to throw M&Ms at people. But, and this may happen, if any negative feelings and thoughts come up, you know, why didn't I get a better fig? Use our ARV love approach. Add love in that very moment in a very positive way, and your mind will turn very positive, and it's all part of a process that's growing me, my inside, my communication channel. But basically be happy. Now, what about a miss or a pass? You know, you never stop learning. You're feeding your sub all the time with all of this stuff. I don't think there's anything wrong with passes. It actually took me a while to not only get that there's nothing wrong, but to just want to avoid them. Anyway, and this is harder, and this is true, though. There's nothing wrong with misses. The old statement that you learn more from misses than hits, I think that's true. And I just did want to again emphasize, add on a new transcript. A lot of people bring out a brand new sheet of paper and they put the good stuff and then they'll add structure, something they missed, a color. And as they're adding them, they're like communicating with their sub because they're looking at the picture, paying attention. And so the communication channel is getting a little bit bigger. So something you wish you had said or drawn in the original. And then ultimately, remember this guy? I really believe that, and misses and passes are the place to do this because we're human beings. That's a good thing. And in fact, but let's use the fact that we will probably have some negs, some negative feelings, some negative thoughts. And with them, the recognition of them is really important. That's where you're going to pay attention to what's going on in your own mind. You now recognize this, and then you add this love. You get the feeling of love in you, and you connect it with that. So you're really spending a little more time with love. You spend time with it. You know it is in fact feeding your sub. You know you're learning because of it. That's why this balance between the mind is there, but the love is coming from your heart. So that's what's going on there. I don't know why, but this just came in yesterday, and I kind of like the way it sounds. Don't judge your negs, just love them. Don't judge. Okay. Anyway, but that's right. You know, when it comes up, you're going to judge it. Oh, what's going on? Nah, just love them. Okay. Any questions on the feedback stuff we just did? Let me see if there's anything. Oh, okay, Lila, you've been taking care of all that. Great.
Mark, maybe not
Yeah.
really a question, but
Yeah, sure, shoot.
yeah, thanks. Didn't want to interrupt before, but I mean, I was willing to participate, but I mean, I got confused with the timing because I mean, I put my mail in, I had my target number. I was ready to start, but when I mean the time that was there to, I mean the cool down time with the beach sounds. I mean, I used it
Right.
as a cooling period.
Oh,
You
the
know?
whole time.
That was actually the time. I mean, when I was ready to start, it was actually over.
Okay, well, I hope you had a nice meditative cool down and enjoyed it.
Yeah, but I'm really surprised because I mean, I just learned to. I mean, I did a training to learn to do some CRV, and so I'm new to this. But what I learned, I mean, when I do a session, it takes me like 45 minutes or an hour. So I'm not used to doing the 10-minute session. I don't know how you guys do it.
Well, let me just say one thing about that. That's important. ARV is different than doing a CRV session where you're trying to find a missing person, or you're trying to find what's going on with in a terrorist mind, or just find an object that's missing, or something that's got more importance. The CRV sessions will often be 10, 20, 30 pages. Here, we're just trying to distinguish between two possible targets. And so CRVers, and we have a lot of them, will typically go through stage 1, 2, and some 3. Rarely do they get into a 4 because it takes too long, but some of them are fast enough to get into a 4. But, well, that's it. And so they'll typically spend 5, 10, 15 minutes and no more. Because if you're in the ARV community and want to do ARV regularly, you want to do them regularly. Use it or lose it. And so with ARV, typically people work on purpose to make it shorter.
Okay, I understand.
Yeah, and you could probably do that, now that I've said that and you've understood it. In fact, what you might want to do is you've got your coordinate, do a session, submit it. You're in the workshop webinar group.
Yes, I am.
Okay, so all of the taskings and everything are there, and everything you need is there to do it. So go ahead and do it and submit it, and then whenever this comes due, you'll get your feedback.
Okay.
Good. Thank you.
But so basically you do just one page with phase 1 and 2.
No, a lot of
quick
people give me 3 pages. Rarely do I get more than 3 pages. I get 2 pages a lot and 1 page a lot.
Okay.
Yeah. So, if you do 3 pages, that'll be well within, a reasonable range.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Good. You're certainly welcome. Okay. So to wrap this up, remember this is you, the psi part of you, the I psi. And here you are also, and you're communicating with yourself. I mean, it's kind of remarkable, but that's what's going on, right? And how could this not be fun? Here you are learning about how to communicate with yourself through time, to make a handshake, which could be looked at as being precognitive from here to here or retrocausal from here to here. In any case, it is a strong handshake, all coming. Somehow I may have to add the heart here, but nevertheless, it's clearly you. So you create what you experience in your now conscious moments. That's what you're paying attention to. Everything happens in your now conscious moments. And the UCC remembers the past one and remembers, in quotes, the future ones. It knows everything. It's the eternal now, if you will. And it's got it down there. Now, conscious moments involve the ego, the subconscious, and the UCC. We can sort of break it up that easily. The conscious moment is experienced directly, but the ego is there, the subconscious is there, and the UCC is there. During the remote viewing, one of the key things is to set your ego aside, the intellect, the day-to-day stuff, except to stay in protocol while you're creating your transcript. That's the only job the ego has, is to pay attention to what comes into its conscious mind from the subconscious and put it down on the transcript. You can bring love into your conscious moment anytime you choose. You are a being with free will. So when a neg comes up, a negative feeling, a negative thought, that's the time, right? This is in your mind, you're conscious of it, but that's when you bring love. And love indeed heals that. It should become less and less significant. And with that, the associated cause, which is related to your missus, probably, will get better. And then, yes, love conquers all. And I'm going to leave you with this one. Love, wisdom, beauty, joy. Many of you know the Moreau Institute. During a meditation there, these were the 4 words that came into me as I went into 4 pools of water, very significant. Here's what I put together for that. The end of all wisdom is love, love, love. Beauty and things exist in the mind which contemplates them. Only love gives us taste of eternity, deep beauty. The key is to stay in the moment. Joy is found in the moment. Wisdom is knowing I am nothing. Love is knowing I am everything. And between the two, my life works. Love has reasons which reason cannot understand. Some of these are so great. A thing of beauty is a joy forever. Joy, share it, feel it. The true heart's longing, love, wisdom, and freedom of being. And then I couldn't stop without adding that one. So with that, I thank you. And any final comments, questions? Let's go do it.
Marty, it's Lila.
Hi, Lila.
Hi. I just wrote something in the chat box, and it's my own quote, and it's never use the mind to decipher affairs of the heart.
Oh, that's good. It's hard not to, though, but that's good.
Yes. Anyway, that's all.
Okay.
Thank you, Marty.
Okay, very good.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Lila. Started with getting mindful with my toes first. I'm reading some of these others. Why didn't 19774 match the PI page coordinate? Julia, you'll have to say more. You know what? Just because I really need to go, why don't you email me a little more detail on that, Julia, and I'll answer it over email, okay? So with that, unless there's something else someone wants to say, no, a lot of people leaving, that's great. I will leave you with what you've got on the screen, and keep precogging and keep loving.